to Thomas Paine, and he was greatly influenced by Paine's Age of Reason. Now, the reason why I'm smiling is because the Age of Reason is what converted me. So, as I'm moving into this transformation away from Christianity, I'm struggling with what I'm going to do about it in terms of this newfound information. When I read The Age of Reason, I was convinced. It was that moment. It was that time. So, as I shared a little bit about that in the book that I wrote, which I discovered this book in September 2009. My book was basically published in November, which means my manuscript was pretty much done. So I'm writing about my testament about the Age of Reason. Then I found out about this brother, this black man, that had the same type of transition based on a piece of information that was parallel to me. I'm overwhelmed. Another black man. And I'm having trouble finding black people. And I read about him. So I'm hooked to him. I'm tied to him for the rest of my life. And it's because of the Age of Reason. And I still haven't met many people that have read it. It's amazing. It's a very powerful piece. So it made the difference for Hubert Harrison, obviously. And then, as he moved through his life, he supported socialism, birth control for women, and fought against the United States entering World War I. He worked in an attempt to get Congress to pass a bill against lynchings. And then he helped create the Department of Negro Literature and History at the New York Public Library. This man did a lot in 44 years, but most of us don't know anything about him. I would encourage you to read the book. Here's some of his quotes. Yet it should seem that Negroes of all Americans would be found in the free thought fold, since they have suffered more than any other class of Americans from the dubious blessings of Christianity. It has been well said that the two great institutions for the propagation of race prejudice in America are the Associated Press and the Christian Church. This is quite true. Historically, it has nearly always been true of the church. It was in the name of religion that cloaked the beginnings of slavery on the soil of America and buttressed its continuance. The church saw to it that the religion taught to slaves should stress the servile virtues of subservience and content, and these things have bitten deeply into the souls of black folk. He also says, I doubt whether I will ever be anything but an honest agnostic, because I prefer to go to my grave with my eyes open. That's Hubert Harrison. Jeffrey Perry says, in his writing of the book, he says, the life story of this free-thinking black, Caribbean-born, race and class-conscious, working-class, intellectual activist is a story that needs to be told. It offers a missing vision and voice that fill major gaps in the historical record and enable us to significantly reshape our understanding and interpretation of the first 3 decades of the 20th century. Most important, perhaps his life story offers profound insights for thinking about race, class, religion, immigration, war, democracy, and social change in America. Here's a principal reason why Harrison's life story is important. In the period of the First World War, Harrison was the most class-conscious of the race radicals and the most race-conscious of the class radicals. This seeming incongruity was made possible by the political economic system of the United States, a system in which, according to historian Theodore Allen, racial oppression was central to capitalist rule. An exploration of how Harrison was radical on both issues sheds considerable light on the nature of U.S. society and the essence of racial oppression. It also sheds considerable light, as Harrison explained, on the radical implications of true democracy and equality for African Americans. The observations of journalist Oscar J. Benson, offered at the time of Harrison's death, are instructive. Benson recognized both the importance of Harrison's life story and the key to capturing its essence when he explained. There are those in every generation whose knowledge is not hoarded, whose intellect is practical, and whose services are unlimited in the community in which they live. And naturally, no one knows of their community without knowing of them. To this class of preceptors, Hubert Harrison belongs. Jeffrey says, literary men of this class are seldom honored by posterity. Their philosophy must be caught on the fly. Like the plain old Uncle Socrates, they go about teaching here and there. Their audiences are vast, and they are always in popular demand. Harrison is of this type, but he was more. He was original. He instituted a new school of thought, packed a new form, dignified the soapbox orator, blocked Lennox and 7th Avenue traffic, sent humble men to libraries and bookstores, sent them about to day and night schools, taught Negroes to think for themselves, taught them that in spite of all the handicaps of slavery and propaganda of anthropologists and sociologists who said that the Negro was an imitator, that no one knew what the Negro could do until he tried. Hubert made great men his teachers, but not his masters. He was always willing to help or encourage a young writer or speaker. He saw the present condition of the Negro, but anticipated a brighter future. So that's what you'll find in this biography of Hubert Henry Harrison, a great African-American freethinker. And I'm proud. I am proud to talk about it. Hope you enjoyed it. Now for our speaker. He has come all the way from Dallas, a place that we don't care too much about. Well, that's when we compete with sports, stuff like that. And I've never liked the Cowboys. So, but anyway, so we are glad to have our speaker here, Dr. Xolani Kacela. Okay, it's a challenging name. Maybe you'll give us a little background on it. Okay. All right. Good. So he's going to talk to us about religion in the black community, the black church. Share some thoughts about that, and it all ties into what black history is about and how important it is to associate humanism within the black community. Doctor.
I just want to preface my remarks by going on record to say that despite having several degrees, I too have not read Age of Reason by Thomas Paine. But I've been inspired this morning to get a copy of The Age of Reason when I get back to Dallas. I'm glad to be here with you all today. This time last week, I would not have seen myself being in Houston. In fact, Don and I have only known each other for a few weeks. And we met because I read an article in the New York Times about the black atheists, which had a link to the black humanist. I emailed them and we went back and forth, and before I knew it, they had sent me Don's information, and I emailed him, and we have since then become kind of soulmates in humanism. So it's been a good journey just in this few weeks to have met him, and have met a few of you all in the room also. So I feel pretty welcome here. I like to say that I live in paradox, meaning that I hold things in tension. I teach pastoral counseling for a university, and I'm ordained as a United Methodist minister and fellowship as a Unitarian Universalist minister. But I also find myself what I call a spiritual humanist, because I have sort of abandoned Christian doctrine. So I teach people who believe strongly in Christian doctrine, but myself, I have a different perspective on the world. Now, I find myself in paradox here also because I've met several of you, and we've had conversation, but also have met Lewis. And Lewis tells me that he's a real-time fact checker. So if I say anything today that's not right, he's armed with his iPad. He's ready to look me up and be ready for Q&A afterwards. So I'm going to try to be on my P's and Q's during my presentation this afternoon. I do want to just answer your question about my name. I have found myself in evolution or transformation, is the word you use, transition, throughout much of my adulthood. I was actually born to two parents on both ends of the religious spectrum. My father is atheist, my mother is a devout Protestant. But I was named Frank Lloyd Chester by birth, named after two of my father's brothers. And then around 1988, I was working for the government, and I moved from Dallas to Munich, Germany for an assignment for a few years. And when I left Dallas, I was used to being called Frank. But I decided that I wanted to switch from Frank to Lloyd. So to make a clean break, when I moved to Germany, people asked me who I was. I said, I'm Lloyd. They never knew who Frank was. And it took me it took us a while to get used to that name. And when I switched, it caused a lot of consternation in my family. My uncle, who I was named after, became quite upset and distressed. Created an argument between he and my father for some time. And then my mother thought I was a little weird because I had switched names. And then in 2000, I began to deliberate about changing my name to an African name. And I had just finished a residency at Methodist Hospital in chaplaincy at the time. And I thought, well, this would be another time to make a clean break. So when I began my life after that assignment, I switched from Lloyd to Xolani. Xolani is a name that's South African, and Kacela is a name that's Zambian. Xolani means please have peace or make peace, and Kacela means hunter. So that's the background of my name. Many people think I'm Hawaiian. I like the idea of being exotic from Hawaii, but I was actually born in Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
It's exotic.
It's exotic in its own way, right? Well, I'm going to give you a talk on perspectives on black religion and the black church. And I thought I would preface my comments to give you a little bit of my own spiritual journey, just so that my material is not too detached from who I am. So you won't think that the church is there and I'm here and I've no longer associate myself with the church, because I do. And I just need to say that so you'll know. Many of my colleagues are in the Unitarian Universalist Church are what I would consider humanist. And I was telling Donald, if you go to a Unitarian Universalist church, you can't assume who anyone is. You have to actually ask them who they are so you'll know what their perspective is. So I'm kind of, with y'all, coming out of the closet to say who I am so you don't have to guess. But I was, as I said, raised in a family with a split heritage. Both of my grandmothers and my grandfathers were religious, but my mother was raised in the African American Episcopal Church, or AME Church, and she's now 88, and she's still involved in that church. She's still a stewardess in the church.